So welcome to section 5. This is section 5 for, we're still in Nigeria, and we're going to take a look at this bowl. And I didn't say quaba. Um, what else did I want to say about this bowl? So I do want to get into this, but I hope that in looking at this, I'm just going to remind you, if you're not doing it in your brain, because you might not automatically do it. I've been teaching the subject for a long time, so my brain automatically does it. But certainly it's understandable if yours does not. So what I'm asking you to reflect on is all that you've watched so far about the importance of the female, all that you've listened to in the lectures about the importance of the female, and here to understand that because as there's a woman whose work I really respect, her name is Dr. Jewel Pookrum, and Dr. Jewel Pookrum refers to women as the gateway to this dimension, that they are the ones who provide the gateway for beings in human form to come into this dimension. And that is very true, that without women, you do not have life. Of course, men plant the seed, but it has to land in fertile ground. The woman has to have a good, stable sense of mind, a good, stable sense of self in order to formulate that child inside of her body. Her blood quality matters. These are things that Dr. Joe Pookrum talks about. But it's not, it just makes so much sense to me. It's more than the fact that she talks about it. Just think about all of the various things that happen. Science also confirms how much the mood matters of the mother, okay? And then this is like the genetic markers that we come with. But anyway, so what I wanted to say about this is, if you think about Babatunde Lawal and his emphasis on the calabash, and the calabash being sometimes a bowl in terms of what it can function as, okay? But a calabash, by the way, if you're not familiar with that, because he doesn't necessarily break down what a calabash is, so let me tell you what a calabash is. A calabash is a gourd. And gourds, a lot of people eat the flesh and the seeds and stuff that are in, I don't know about the seeds, but they eat the element that is inside. But it's like a squash. They allow it to harden and then remove the content on the inside. All sorts of things are made out of calabashes. I've seen jewelry. I've seen eating containers, water gathering containers, drums. I don't know. There's other things too I'm probably not thinking of. Drums, but drums are instruments, and other instruments besides drums, like stringed instruments, are sometimes used out of the calabash. So the calabash has so many different uses. And so it looks like the women here are holding up a calabash, okay? Could be a calabash, but certainly, if nothing else, it's a bowl. I'm interpreting it as a calabash. I'm not sure that it's a calabash, but when you think about women, especially in many parts of the world, being the ones who are the main water gatherers, women having a larger amount of water naturally in her body because she is built to, again, be the gateway for this dimension so that she can carry forth life and birth it into the world. Okay, so that is just what women are built to do. Now, whether or not they choose to do it, whole nother story, but we're built to do that. Okay, we have the ability to do that. And then over here, now I'm gonna have to go and find this picture so that I can see, but what I can see about this is a large female that you cannot see here. You cannot see all of her, but she is obviously the main figure. In African American culture, and I know we over here on the continent, but in African American culture, we have a sense of someone that we sometimes refer to as Big Mama, or she can be, sometimes we will definitely always put grandma whoever in front of, and then other people don't get that particular title, not just because of the name, but because we know that she is like the most elder person. And so, you know, what was funny about my, you know, I'm sharing a story now, but what was funny about my, let me get it right, paternal grandmother, my father's mother, was that we just called her grandmother. All the grandchildren called her grandmother, at least the first generation, and some of them called her, what do they call it, grandmother Vicky or grandma Vicky. Aunt Vic is what I heard, but most of us, her grandchildren through her children, we tended to call her grandmother. And I remember having many family gatherings, and we did not eat. We did not bless the food until grandmother got there. When she showed up, then it was okay to start. When we knew that she wasn't there yet, we did not start until she got there. And sometimes the prayer was led by her and sometimes not. But it was always important to wait for her, whether she cooked or not. It was important to wait for her before we started, because she was our most ancient person in the physical form that we had access to. So getting back to this particular piece, it's made out of wood. It is it has pigment, which it means paint, you know, but pigment usually refers to something that is a plant-based dye. Paint, um, it could be a plant-based dye, or it could be, let me see, because I don't know the date on this one, but it probably still was a plant-based paint, but maybe it had other stuff mixed in it with like um, oils and all. The traditional paint is oil paint. You know, acrylic is new. Acrylic didn't come out until like the mid 1900s, but excuse me, oil-based paint, that's been around forever, forever. So um, what we may have here in terms of what's being called pigment is just something that is plant-based that does seep into the pores of wood. Let's not forget, wood is very porous. So if someone finds some natural pigment that comes from a plant-based, they can just kind of rub it into it. And because it's porous, it will pick it up and it will take on the color of that particular item. What else did I want to say here? I think that's mostly it. So just remember the importance of the females happening here. I am guessing this is an ancestor. I'm guessing. That's what that feels like to me. Okay. All right. So let's move forward. And obviously, what's emphasized here is, to me, it feels like the strength of the women is being emphasized here. And not only the strength of the women, but the strength of the women operating as a group. Okay. All right. So here, this particular piece, or pieces, excuse me, were done as a couple, and it's intentional. Now, this kind of refers to, this is the next. Oh, I think I should have put that in there. I don't know if I put, let me see. Okay, this last question, the importance of kneeling. Hopefully you read about that. You got a clear understanding of how important it is. It's happening here. It's happening here. And so the importance of kneeling, similar to what we saw in Kemet, but it's about humility. It's about certainly giving deference and honor to that whom is perceived to be honored, okay, and who is perceived to deserve a certain amount of honoring. Still to this day, there are people out of this region, I've watched it with my own eyes, who, when approaching an elder, or okay, I'll just say it like this: when approaching an elder, there are other situations that it seems to occur as well, but what I noticed for sure is when approaching an elder, that before speaking, there's a bow that happens, and it's almost like they really bow. They like dip, and the knees dip, and there's a bowing and a kneeling that occurs. And then after they've done that, they will address that particular elder, because you could tell it was just automatic. It wasn't like they had to think about it. Oh God, do I have to kneel? It was none of that. It was just, this is what I do, and then I speak. And the elder um, wasn't shocked by it. This is what he expected, and this is what people have been raised to do. This is what is their norm. Okay. So it's a value, and it's a value system. They value their elders. So therefore, yes, of course, I'm going to kneel before this wise person who's been around for a while, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. What else was I going to say about this? So these particular pieces are carved out of wood. Notice, compared to this is sort of a, it doesn't have any luster, not a, well, I wouldn't say any luster, but it doesn't have a lot of luster to it. There are a few areas that more than likely it could have been body oil, people touching it and rubbing it, and our oils tend to come off and to affect pieces like this, but not a lot of that. You notice that it has sort of a dullness about it. You go over here, definitely intentional sheen. It is meant to have an intentional sheen. Now, whether or not that is saying something about the bodies of the people, maybe the youthfulness, young people tend to shine, right? So whether or not it's that, um, or if it is simply a choice of the artisan who carved these pieces. But what's nice about it is that it is a couple. Now, there's a lot that could be thought of here, that perhaps, in being that it was a couple, that they are being humble with each other, that they are being generous with each other. Um, and that, and notice that the female, again, has the calabash, or the container, the vessel, next to her sacred space, which would be where children, would come through. And that being her holding a container when she herself is a container for life. Okay, so I think that there's that sort of element that's happening right there. What else do we have here? And then the texture on the hair is beautiful. Let me see if I can zoom in on the texture of the hair on both pieces, the texture of the hair and the obvious element of design that is intended here. So just to give you a closer look at that, I'll zoom in on that. Beads were, literal beads were attached to, though, it could have happened here, right? Where they could have done that same thing, but instead those are carved out of the wood. Obvious indication about scarification, which is going to tell people from the culture something about who this person is, something about accomplishment, something about the group that he comes from, and his associations. So that within the culture is read as a symbol. People in the culture know what that means, okay? People from the culture, from that particular region, and from that particular time frame. Unfortunately, sometimes some of this stuff gets lost as people, the young people come along and they just lose stuff, No different than our society. It happens with us too. Okay, and then if you saw her headpiece, and you can always zoom in on that once you are looking at this, but her headpiece is rather beautiful as well. Okay. So apparently this is a couple that was created as a shrine or something meant to operate on a shrine. And apparently I would say that this couple more than likely was of importance to the community in which it was created. Okay. And so it measures approximately 23 and 3/4. That's probably for him. And then obviously she's a little bit shorter. Okay. And then here's another pair. This particular work is made out of ivory. It is it dates pre-1850, and you know we did have a horrible thing that was going on with the elephants with the poaching, in order for people to acquire more ivory, because ivory is an amazing sort of material in terms of what you can get with it and what you can do with it. So I get it as a valued medium to work with, but I am glad that they stopped doing it with elephants. But let's talk about this particular piece. It's beautiful. Again, we have the calabash, right? So the calabash keeps coming up. And so the fact that Babatunde Lawal talked about the calabash as important in terms of the cosmology, in terms of importance of the philosophy, just keep that in mind as you're looking at these pieces and you come across them. All of that is important. What else was I going to say? So on the left here is the male. On the right is the female. Um, People often say, what happened to the lower part of your feet? It looks like a clean cut, but I'm not sure if it's a clean cut or if she, I just don't get the sense. I really get the sense that something happened and her feet is missing. But I know some people said, well, but it looks like they're really short, and he is supporting her. You know, notice that she's holding on to him. He's holding on to the calabash, and then she's holding on to him. What this feels like to me, though, is that, again, they're a couple that's operating in balance and in harmony. He's looking one way, she's looking the other. If we could flip this around 180 degrees and look at it from the opposite view, she's looking at us, he's looking the other way. So in modern language, it feels like they're watching each other's back. That's what it feels like to me. I could be wrong, but that's what I get. So it's an ivory piece, just so that you know that is what you're looking at. Okay. And again, it's about the balance of the masculine and the feminine. You can't have the masculine without the feminine. You can't have the feminine without the masculine. And that's the same thing that's being communicated here. And also the balance of the masculine and the feminine having its specific expression, and the male having its specific expression. And again, hopefully you remember that you have both inside of you. You have male and you have female elements inside of you. Doesn't mean you're gay, for those of you who are freaking out about that. And it doesn't mean, or, you know, it doesn't mean anything outside of the fact that sometimes you think um, more in a nurturing way, while other times you think more in terms of action. And, but either side can do both. And as a matter of fact, to do both in sync is a really good thing. Okay, let me move forward with this. I feel like wow, that was only 3 slides. Okay, I guess I'm going to stop there, and we'll move on to section 6. Section 6 will talk about these bronze heads that we're going to take a closer look at, okay? So we'll stop there, and we'll pick up with section 6 next time.